I keep companies from falling apart quietly. That's what DevOps is, at least when you take the jargon off. There's a fire you never hear about because some boring guy like me saw a graph wobble and fixed the thing before it had a name. I like boring. Boring is uptime, health checks, green lights. Boring is a text at 2 a.m. that says CPU spiked and a reply that says patched. I tried to run my family that way, alerts, mitigations, postmortems that never had to involve tears. You can probably guess how that went. I'm Thomas. 29, Phoenix-born, lived long enough under this sun to know there's a difference between heat and pressure. I met Emily on a day when both were high. She's a paramedic with a laugh you can hear through a closed door. We collided at a fender bender off Indian School Green Camaro, tried to argue with physics, and I gave a dazed teenager my water bottle while Emily checked pupils and asked questions in a voice that seemed to lower the temperature. After she cleared the scene, she sat on her ambulance bumper and stretched her neck like a fighter between rounds. I said, "You want a coffee?" She said, "Always," like a person who tells the truth. We hit a Dutch Bros, and the conversation didn't stop. Bad calls that stick in your throat, the weird holiness of a perfectly functioning CII-CD pipeline, the way Phoenix smells like creosote after a storm. We moved quick. That's the part of the story people either judge or envy. I told her about my mother by the third date because if you're going to build anything on this ground, you test the soil. Linda is Linda. She ran PTA meetings like mergers and treated our house like an event she was hosting in perpetuity. My dad, Mark, poured concrete for a living and spent the rest of his time sanding down the sharp corners of her days by being quiet and useful. My younger brother, Jason, got charisma as a superpower. He's a trainer at a gym where the mirrors applaud. He's the guy who can make a joke in a waiting room and leave with 3 phone numbers and a free smoothie. Emily listened to all that like she was loading context into a mental CAD model. She told me her own divorced parents who forgot to decide who she was when they divided the furniture, a job that made holidays optional and adrenaline normal, one serious relationship that turned into a different kind of emergency. "I don't do games," she said across a plate of street tacos. "I work around too much pain to entertain that at home." I believed her because she believed herself. We were solid. The kind of solid where you share calendars not because you're suspicious, but because you like knowing where the other person will be when you need to say, "Buy milk," or "Are you okay?" We split chores by talent. She handles people, I handle systems. She can convince a landlord to fix the AC in July with one phone call. I can make a backyard swamp cooler behave like it respects us. We laughed at the same dumb memes and went quiet for the same kinds of calls. When I asked her to move into my place near Arcadia, she said yes after looking out the sliding glass door at Camelback like a person checking a map. Introducing her to my family felt like introducing her to a legacy codebase, lots of undocumented behavior and features that worked for reasons that weren't obvious. Linda did the hug and scan hand on back just long enough to check for knives and said, "A paramedic? Oh, we'll feel safer at Christmas." Dad shook her hand like a gentleman and said, "Thank you for what you do," and it sounded like a prayer. Jason gave her the smile, not his gym floor grin, the one he saves for women he wants to remember him. Here's the part where I put my hand up and say I didn't know, and then I have to explain what I didn't know, how I didn't know it. The first month Emily met my family, she was cool with Jason, polite, amused, an eyebrow ready for when he flexed with a punchline. The second month she went a little quiet after a Sunday dinner. On the drive back, she stared out the window at a billboard for a casino like it had something to teach her about odds. I said, "You okay?" And she said, "I should tell you something that will be harder to hear later if it comes from someone else." That is not a sentence a man forgets. I clicked the blinker out of reflex, DevOps even while driving. She said, "I knew Jason, before you. Not like a story I want to tell at a family picnic. It was short, months. He ghosted. I didn't know he was your brother when I met you, Tom. I swear to God I didn't. I figured out who he was the first time you showed me that high school photo on your dad's wall." The photo in question had me in braces and a hoodie, and Jason in a Letterman jacket he absolutely did not earn. I'd been proud of it, of us. I pulled over into a Walgreens lot, the bright fluorescent honesty of a pharmacy making everything feel worse and better. "Why didn't you tell me right then?" I asked. "I meant it honest, not as a trap." "I wanted," she blew out her breath, "I wanted to be your Emily before I was Jason's mistake." We sat in that light. A coin flip place. I've done a lot of decision matrices in a lot of war rooms. This one didn't need a whiteboard. "Are you done with him?" I said, because that's the only question that matters in any timeline that wants to survive. "Yes," she said, instantly, like a person who had practiced that line in the mirror and was relieved to finally get to say it. That was the night I decided the past is an archive, not an API. I told her I could live with history if it stopped calling in the present. I told her I needed truth without ticker tape. She put her hand on the back of my neck and said, "Same." We told my parents together a week later because secrets rot and I refused to live in mold. Dad said, "That's life," and poured more iced tea. Linda smiled with her lips and not her eyes and said, "Well, honesty is important," which in my house is a phrase you use when you'd prefer a different honesty. Jason didn't say anything because he wasn't there. He texted me an hour later. "We cool?" I typed, "We're family," and deleted that, and typed, "We're fam," and sent it, which meant, "Don't test me in a language," which meant, "Don't test me," in a language we both spoke. I proposed at the top of Dobbins Lookout on South Mountain because I am basic and sincere, and the sunset does half the work for you. She cried and laughed and said yes and kissed me like new oxygen. When we came down, my phone pinged with a picture from my mother of champagne glasses and a caption that said, "This is actually happening." Jason replied with a rocket emoji and the word "finally," which is the kind of support that let me sleep that night. We did an engagement dinner at my parents' because Linda organizes joy like a conference. She sent calendar invites for coordination dinner with an agenda attached. I wish I were kidding. I accepted. Emily brought flowers. Dad grilled something he'd brined into forgiveness. The first hour, honestly, was good. Linda told stories like she was auditioning for a kinder version of herself. Jason was on his second beer and his best behavior. And then the toast. He stood, lifted his glass, and did the smile. "To the happy couple," he said, and the room short-hummed with approval. "To my big brother who taught me how to ride a bike and fix things I didn't break." Laughter? And to Emily, who taught me the difference between a bruise and a mistake. People's faces do things when they're being performed to. Emily's did a stillness I recognize from seeing her kneel on asphalt. Linda did the motherly laugh attention demands but put a hand on Jason's wrist like a coach telling a player to pass. He didn't. "What I mean," he said, "is I hope we're all here for the right reasons. Love is a verb, you know, like commitment, not a situation." He looked at Emily when he said, "Situation," like a guy nudging you under the table. Dad said, "Jason," in the tone that makes finished nails go deeper. Jason tossed back the rest of his beer and sat down like he'd been caught in a lie but hadn't decided which one yet. Emily breathed through her nose like a professional, and later, in the car, I saw her hands shaking when she tried to clip her seatbelt. "He doesn't get to turn me into an adjective," she said, and laughing made her voice stronger. Linda texted me at 11:12 p.m. 2 days later. "We should do family therapy, not because there's a problem, but because I want us to be strong." There was a calendar invite by 11,014, Dr. Patel Family Systems Intake, with the subject line, "Building Skills." I stared at it like it was a deployment I was being voluntold for. Emily said, "If it shuts the noise up faster, I'll go." Dad said, "Whatever you need." Jason sent the thumbs up and then a fist bump because he never met a set of options he couldn't throw a gym emoji at. I didn't suspect a trap. That's the part that bothers me when I replay this. I suspect everything. It's my job. But I wanted the machine to work. The week before the appointment, Linda added a coordination dinner at her house. Her invite said, "Quick bite before therapy. Align messaging. Keep Dad calm." I showed Emily. "Align messaging," she said. "Is your mother a crisis PR firm?" I said. "She's going to think this is her show. Dr. Patel will handle it." Emily kissed my cheek and said, "I like when handle it." Emily kissed my cheek and said, "I like when you believe in experts." Here's where the mic comes in. I've got a voice memos complication on my Apple Watch because I'll lose a thought in the walk between my desk and the kitchen. It's muscle memory at this point. Tap the little waveform, talk to future me, stop! The day of the appointment, I parked outside Dr. Patel's office in a medical complex that smelled like Band-Aids and overwatered philodendrons, and I tapped the watch to mumble a few things to myself. Don't minimize, don't let Jason take the mic, ask for ground rules. The red waveform pulsed on my wrist. I forgot to hit stop. The waiting room had soft chairs and a table with the kind of magazines nobody touches because the titles sound healthier than you feel. Dr. Patel's receptionist had the kind of face you get from listening to strangers for a living. Emily went to the restroom. I sat by the window and watched a mom with a toddler navigate a doorway like a choreography. Linda and Jason walked in a minute later, voices pitched in that fake whisper families do when they want credit for trying. Linda wore armor disguised as a sweater. Jason's shirt was too small on purpose. "Thomas," Linda said, "air kiss. We got here early too. Good sign. Shows willingness." "Hey," I said, agreeing to nothing. I took my watch off because the band was pinching and set it next to my phone on the little side table between chairs. The memo kept ticking. The watch doesn't tell you it's recording unless you look at it. I didn't look. I went to fill out forms. Insurance. No, out of network, yes. Reasons for visit blank. When I came back, Linda and Jason were in low voices by the magazines. I didn't know until later what the watch heard. I didn't know until later that the microphone in that aluminum case picked up my mother's voice, crisp as a voicemail. "Do it when Dad's in the room," Linda said. "Not at the beginning. Wait until she has spoken. Then you stand up, Jason, and you say, 'I can't, I'm sorry, I thought I could come here and be neutral, but no, better, I can't lie anymore.' And then, this is the important part, down on one knee. Eye contact. You say, 'Emily, you and I were the real story, you know it. Before this, convenience. Use that word, convenience. Watch her face. If she looks at Thomas, first, we're done here. Watch her face if she's Thomas.' 'Mom,' Jason said, a kid again for half a syllable. 'If she looks at you,' Linda continued, as if she hadn't heard him. 'If she reaches, even a little, if her mouth does that thing, you move. You say, "We made a mistake, we can fix it." Then you open the box, you won't have to put it on, she'll show herself.' I didn't know then about the box. I'd find out, and do not worry about the ring. I have the receipt, it's returnable after tonight." "I don't. This seems..." Jason's voice was a gym bench under too much weight. "It seems necessary," Linda said. "I will not have my son marry a woman who is in love with his brother. We are clarifying motives. Dr. Patel will understand. He's a professional. This is data." Linda always could say, "data," like a forgiveness. "Mom," Jason tried again, "what if she says no and I look like..." "You will look like a man with standards," Linda said. "Finally." Jason made a small sound like the back of a laugh. "You think Dad will be okay with this?" "Your father is tired," Linda said, clipped. "He is tired of excuses. He is tired of you boys making me the villain. He is tired of me being the only one who takes action. He will be relieved." It would have been funny if it weren't so precise, her certainty. The kind of funny you laugh at later, when your hands aren't shaking. Emily came back from the restroom, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and squeezed my hand. "Ready?" she whispered. "We go in, we say our piece, we leave." The receptionist called our names. Dr. Patel opened the door to his office, a man in his 50s with the kind of calm you only trust when you've seen it withstand hurricanes. "Come on in," he said. "I'm Dr. Patel." We took seats, couch for me and Emily, 2 chairs for my parents, 1 for Jason. Dr. Patel angled himself so no one was in a corner. He asked the questions that let him hear the music before the lyrics. "Why now?" he said. "Why together?" He set rules about interruptions and no raised voices, and I saw Linda bristle at the idea of consent having to be shared. That was almost funny too. I waited for someone to force me to go first. Linda did what she always does, took the floor like a mitzvah. "We are here," she said, "because my sons have made choices that require guidance. We are a close family. We believe in unity. Emily is new to our system, and while we welcome her, we also need to ensure the foundation is strong before we hang too much weight on it. There have been complications." She looked at Emily like she was pronouncing a diagnosis and refused to say history out loud. Emily didn't flinch. "We're here because I want to marry Thomas," she said, steady, "and because Jason used our engagement dinner to hint that I shouldn't. I'm willing to sit in a room and be honest. I work a job where we only get better if we tell the truth about what hurts." Jason took a breath like he'd been underwater and said, "I wanted to check motives, like that was a good thing in a place that sells tissue by the box. I care about my brother." Dr. Patel made a small note. "When you say check motives," he said in that gentle knife way clinicians have, "what does that mean to you?" He looked at Jason like he was listening for heart sounds. Jason looked at Linda like he was listening for permission. My watch buzzed on the table by the wall, a reminder to stand that felt like a comedy edit. I glanced over, saw the red waveform still moving on the voice memo's face, felt my stomach try to pull up and out. I stood, walked to the side table like a man crossing a minefield he knows by heart, and tapped stop. In the small square of the watch screen, I saw a timestamp that didn't make sense unless I looked at the time on Dr. Patel's wall. I did not look at my mother. I sat back down. Dad hadn't spoken yet. He sat with his elbows on his knees like he was examining a blueprint he didn't like but had been told to pour anyway. When Dr. Patel asked him what he hoped would happen today, he said, "I want us to stop making it worse." It was a humble sentence. It made the room breathe different. Linda jumped into the space, humility opened. Jason is right to protect his brother, she said. We all know the history here. I suggested therapy because I thought we could clarify whether this marriage has the right ingredients. She said ingredients like she was reading from a blog about casseroles. Test how? Dr. Patel asked, still gentle but with a new alert in his eyes. Jason shifted. It was my idea, he lied badly. I thought, if I said what I should have said then, back when, we'd see if Emily? He looked at me, and then at Emily, and then at the carpet pattern like it could save him from tripping. I was going to ask her a question. A proposal? Dr. Patel said. Not judgmental, curious. A scientist hearing a strange hypothesis. Jason lifted one shoulder and put it down. To see, he said. Linda did her church face. I would have been shocked, she said, hand to chest, but sometimes the only way to get to truth is to step into discomfort. Then, as if the thought had just occurred to her, we didn't do anything yet. We were going to, but maybe this is enough. I looked at Emily. She looked at me. We have a secret handshake for, are you thinking what I'm thinking? That looks like nothing to anyone else. I reached for my phone to buy myself a second and saw in the little list of recent recordings synced from my watch an item with a timestamp from the waiting room. I tapped it. The speaker icon glowed low volume down because this isn't the kind of office where you blast audio. Dr. Patel, I said, voice steady like I was talking through a run book. Before we talk about motives, I have something you should hear. It's a piece of data. Linda turned her head slowly toward me like a weather vane finding the wind. Thomas, she said, warning in 2 syllables. Jason's foot started bouncing, gym rat anxious. Come on, man, he said, and that was all the confession a rational person needed? I held the phone so the mic would catch the sound clean. Emily slid her hand into mine under the edge of the couch cushion, fingers cold and certain. Dr. Patel folded his hands and gave me a small nod like a conductor readying a section for the first bar. I pressed play. The sound that came out of my phone was the kind of clean you only get by accident. No pocket rustle, no muffled thumb, just my mother's voice, crisp as a glass edge. Do it when Dad's in the room, not at the beginning, wait until she has spoken, then you stand up, Jason, and you say, I can't lie anymore. Down on one knee, eye contact. Emily, you and I were the real story before this convenience. Use that word, convenience. Watch her face. Jason stared at the carpet like it had become a hole. Linda's smile held for a second, the way a bridge holds just long enough for one last car to make it across, and then it dropped. Dr. Patel didn't flinch. He let the audio play through to the part about the receipt, the box, the return window. When the clip ended, the room didn't explode. It folded. Thank you for bringing that, he said to me, neutral and steady. To Linda, is that your voice? She tried a laugh that belonged in a different scene. This is, Thomas, really? You're recording your mother now? In a doctor's office? What is wrong with you? It was a waiting room, I said. You were planning a stunt, and yes, that's exactly my answer. When you set up traps, I document. I won't let you turn therapy into theater. Jason rubbed the back of his neck, his tell when he knows he's on the wrong side of a deadline. Mom, he said, smaller, we shouldn't have. We? She snapped, like stepping on a nail. I told you to clarify, that's not a crime. Dr. Patel, what you're hearing is a mother trying to protect her family from making a mistake. Emily slept with my younger son and now wants to marry my older. I think the adults in the room understand the need for caution. Emily didn't raise her voice. She just put words on the table and left them there. I was 23. Jason was 21. He ghosted me. I met Thomas years later without knowing they were related. I told Thomas the truth as soon as I realized. He decided to keep building with me. There is no triangle here unless you draw one in permanent marker and insist I stand in it. Dr. Patel held up a hand, not to silence anyone, but to keep the air breathable. Let's keep to I statements, he said, and facts. Linda, the recording indicates premeditation to induce an emotional crisis in this room. Whatever the intention, the effect would likely be harm. That is not how this process works. Linda looked at him like he'd mispronounced her name. You would have heard the truth, she said, as if she were making an argument about tax brackets. You just heard the truth, Dad said. It was the first time he'd interrupted anyone in a year. He reached for his wedding ring, turned it like he was checking a loose fitting, and slid it off. The sound of metal against skin is quiet. The sound of a man choosing is not. He set the ring in his palm, closed his fist around it, opened his hand again as if to show himself he could. I'm tired, he said. I'm tired of us trying to win all the time. I'm tired of this house being a contest. Thomas, I'm sorry. Emily, I'm sorry. Emily, I'm sorry. Jason! Jason stood up like the floor had gotten hot. "I'm not doing this," he said, the old swagger putting up a last fight. "I'm not going to sit here and get crucified because I wanted to make sure my brother wasn't making a mistake." "Sit," Dad said, not loud, iron under cotton. Jason headed for the door anyway. Dr. Patel didn't try to stop him. His job is the ones who stay. Linda stood too, half rising on some instinct to corral, and then sank back as if the air had thickened around her knees. "Mrs. Hale," Dr. Patel said, using the title like a handle, "right now I'm going to ask you to pause and listen. We can talk about fear and protection and control. But step one is acknowledging that what you planned was coercive and unsafe. You are asking your son to propose to a woman in a therapeutic setting to test her fidelity in public. That is a misuse of this space and of your relationships." "Unsafe?" she repeated, as if the word offended her. "You think I would let anything unsafe happen in a room like this?" "You brought a match to a gas leak," I said. "Then you called it airflow." "Thomas," she said, voice going back to that soft scold from my childhood, "we don't speak to each other that way." "We haven't earned a way," I said. She stood. "I need air." Dr. Patel nodded toward the door. "If you take a break, please step into the hallway, not outside. I want to keep everyone within sight." Emily touched my knee. "We can pause," she said. I shook my head. My heart rate had finally stopped sounding like a fire alarm in my ears. I didn't want to hand the mic back to the part of the family that thinks volume is virtue. "Before anyone leaves," Dr. Patel said, "I want to be very clear about boundaries. No physical contact in anger. No confrontations in the hallway. If you need to separate, we'll separate by pairs." Linda nodded like she was agreeing to a flight attendant's instructions. She made it to the hall with her shoulders squared because she learned long ago that collapse is something you do after an audience leaves. Jason was already there, pacing, jaw tight. He glanced up at us as we stepped out. "Get out of my way," he said to Emily, not because she was in it, but because she existed. "Don't talk to her," I said. "I can talk to who I?" He took one step too close, the kind that men forget is a step until they remember it in custody. Linda put a hand on Emily's arm, ostensibly to guide her out of the doorway, and used more force than a doorway needs. Emily's back hit the jamb. It wasn't a shove that would leave a bruise. It was the kind that leaves a report. She looked at Linda like you look at a stranger who just cut you off in traffic, and then at Dr. Patel, who was already standing, already in motion. "Stop," he said, stepping between everyone like he was practiced at this. "Back up, now." The clinic manager must have seen the shift on the hallway camera because a security guard appeared with the kind of speed that tells you this isn't the first time the carpet has caught drama. He put a hand out, palm open, calm. "Let's keep distance," he said. "We can sort this, or we can call PD and have them sort it." "We're fine," Linda said, breath high. "This is family. We're fine." "You put your hands on my fiancée," I said. "We're not fine." Emily exhaled, long and even. "I'm okay," she said, which is what paramedics say when they've done their assessment and decided a scene doesn't need a stretcher. She looked at the clinic manager. "Do you have an incident form?" That's when Linda remembered the camera in the corner of the ceiling. She did math with her face. We went back into Dr. Patel's office by twos. The guard stayed in the hall with Jason until Jason decided to leave. He did it with a lot of shoulder movement and a muttered, "This is stupid," which is adolescent for, "I got caught and don't have the script for remorse yet." Inside, Dr. Patel brought the temperature down like he was born with a thermostat in his throat. "We are done for today," he said. "Linda, I'm going to recommend strongly that you engage in individual work before this family sits in a room together again. Thomas, Emily, I want you to consider a no-contact plan for the immediate term. That includes group chats where conversations escalate, unannounced visits, triangulated messaging. Mark." He turned to my father. "I'd like 5 minutes with you alone before you go, if you're willing." Linda started to argue, the way a person argues with a seatbelt when they don't want to be restrained. Then she saw the piece of paper the manager slid across Dr. Patel's desk, the one that said incident, and she shut her mouth because even in a story she thinks she wrote, she still cares about the published version. We filled out the form like adults. Name, time, description, witness. The guard wrote, observed contact initiated by parent. Dr. Patel wrote, intervened, separated parties. Emily wrote, contacted, no injury, declined medical evaluation. I wrote, request copy for records. When we stepped out to the parking lot, the heat hit like a fact. No heat shimmer, just the honest slap of Phoenix in a month that thinks you're weak for having skin. Dad stood by his truck with the posture of a man who'd stepped onto a dock and found the boat already gone. He opened his arms a little, not enough to make it a scene, just enough to make it a question. Emily hugged him like he'd asked for help moving a couch. He held on like he was the couch. When he let go, he looked at me and then down at his hand where the ring had been. He put the ring in his pocket. It was not a threat. It was a dare to himself. He said, "Coffee?" We went to a diner that hadn't changed its wallpaper since Reagan. The waitress called everyone honey, and Dad ordered black coffee like penance. I waited for him to put it on me the way he used to without meaning to. "I'm sorry I didn't stop your mother. I'm sorry I didn't stop your brother. I'm sorry I taught you silence." He didn't. He said, "I'll call a therapist," like a promise to the room. "Not for your mother, for me." I nodded. My throat did that thing where it buys time by pretending it's a muscle. "I'll send you the audio," I said, "not to spread, to remember." He nodded. "I know who I married," he said. "I need to remember who I raised." The next 48 hours were text messages that could have been exhibits. Linda sent a wall of words about betrayal and respect and how I had humiliated her with a device. She said I had broken the covenant of family privacy. She said Emily was a destabilizing presence, which made Emily laugh like a cough when I read it to her in our kitchen. I didn't respond to Linda with paragraphs. I copied Dr. Patel's bullet points about no contact. I wrote, "We will not attend group events for now. All communication about scheduling goes through me by text. No pop-ins. Boundaries are love in practice." She responded with, "You're choosing her over us." I wrote back, "I'm choosing health over chaos." Jason sent a shorter text the next day. "Bro, you didn't have to play it like that." I typed, deleted, typed again. "You had a ring." He sent a picture of a small velvet box on a countertop, lid open, receipt peeking out like a white flag. "Don't be dramatic," he wrote. "Mom wanted leverage." "You're a grown man," I wrote. "Be your own leverage." He sent back a middle finger because when a person runs out of nouns, they reach for hands. We made it official by doing the boring things. Emily and I met with a lawyer who knew how to translate human mess into court English. She looked at the incident report, the audio clip, a printout of Linda's calendar invites with coordination dinner and align messaging, like post-it notes over months, and said, "You're not overreacting. If the pushing happens again, we go straight to a petition for an injunction against harassment. If it doesn't, we maintain distance and document." The clinic manager emailed us a copy of the report before end of day because competence is an underrated love language. Dr. Patel wrote a short letter, the kind therapists can write without breaching anything. "I recommend the Hales adopt a no-contact plan with Ms. Linda Hale for 90 days to be reevaluated after individual work milestones." He included a list of local clinicians who specialize in family systems and enmeshment. He did not use the word enmeshment in the letter because he's not in the business of poking bears by mail. We moved to Scottsdale within a month. Not far, but far enough that the freeway between us and my mother felt like a moat. Smaller place, more light, a kitchen Emily wanted to cook in, and a closet I wanted to fix. I bought a desk that didn't wobble and put my watch charger next to my laptop like a shrine to the day a device did the job. Everyone said it shouldn't. We hung a cheap print of Cathedral Rock in the hallway because the plan was Sedona anyway someday, when the dust settled and the names stopped feeling like threats. Dad texted from time to time like a man learning a new language. "How are you two? Saw a Bronco that looked like yours." Dr. White is not bad. He used periods, which in my father's grammar means sincerity. He came to our place for coffee on a Sunday morning and sat at our little table and said, "I'm sorry I didn't stop it sooner," which is a past tense apology men don't give unless the present is a place they want to stay. "It's not on you to stop a person who doesn't want to stop," Emily said, and my father looked at her like a paramedic had just told him his heart had a rhythm worth keeping. Linda tried to break the 90 days at day 21 with a photo of a casserole and the text, "Family dinner, 7 sharp," as if the calendar had the authority. I wrote back, "Please respect the plan." She replied with a thumb up I could feel in my molars. On day 92, I sent a message that said, "We're open to a phone call with ground rules," and she replied with a list of conditions that began with, "No recordings," and ended with, "You apologize for undermining me in front of a doctor." I didn't answer for 24 hours. When I did, I wrote, "No phone call yet. Individual therapy first. When you have 3 sessions under your belt, I'll schedule with Dr. Patel present." She sent back, "You've replaced me with a stranger," and I sent back, "I've replaced chaos with process." We got married in Sedona in late fall, a day made of red rock and sky. Cathedral Rock watched us like a benevolent witness. We kept it small on purpose. No roles, no performances. Dad sat in the second row next to two empty chairs. He cried during the vows, the way concrete men cry, like they're embarrassed about how much water tears add to a mix. Jason didn't come. We didn't invite Linda because not inviting her was the first wedding gift I gave my future. Emily's friend from the ambulance read a blessing she wrote herself about sirens and quiet rooms. We said the things you say when you mean it and didn't feel silly. I told her, boring is my favorite miracle. She told me love is a pulse you keep checking because you want to hear it, not because you're afraid it stopped. We signed the license leaning on a picnic table. Dad took a picture on a phone he still uses like it's magic. The ring on my finger felt like a promise to gravity. After the ceremony, Dad asked if we could swing by a coffee shop on the way out of town. The place had a chalkboard menu and the kind of baked goods that break into perfect halves. He sat across from me with his hands around a mug and took a breath that looked like he'd practiced it. "When you were a kid," he said, "you used to bring me broken stuff from the garage and I'd make a stack and fix one thing every Saturday until the stack was gone. I thought that's what this was, a stack. I kept thinking one more Saturday and I'd get to the bottom of it. Then I got old enough to know the stack makes itself. I'm sorry I taught you to wait for a day that never comes." "You taught me to fix things," I said. "I had to learn when not to." He nodded. "I'm learning that too." He looked at Emily. "I'm grateful you chose him," he said, "and that he chose you." We did the normal stuff that people who haven't been in a war don't realize is holy. We made grocery lists. We argued about sheet thread counts like we had been raised in a hotel. We got a secondhand dog who thinks my keyboard is a rival. I went back to standing up servers and arguing with pipelines and reminding junior engineers that logs tell the truth even when people don't. Emily went back to the bus and came home some nights with blood on her shoes. She wiped off before she kissed me. Linda eventually did 3 sessions. She emailed me a screenshot of an appointment confirmation like a child presenting a homework assignment your name is on. I set a call with Dr. Patel for an hour on a Thursday. She lasted 11 minutes before she tried to turn it into a courtroom where she was counsel and we were witnesses. Dr. Patel interrupted her gently and said, "Mrs. Hale, this is an invitation, not a cross-examination. When you're ready to accept it, we can keep going." She hung up. He didn't look surprised. Neither did I. Jason kept his distance. He posted gym videos and motivational quotes that read like apologies to no one. He tried once to message Emily at midnight and she screenshotted it and sent it to me and Dr. Patel and wrote in the group text, "Please keep the no contact." He didn't try again. He got a new client who tagged him like a trophy and then untagged him like a cautionary tale. I stopped looking. You can't heal on a diet of other people's highlights. On the anniversary of the waiting room, I tapped my watch and recorded a memo on purpose. It wasn't a plan. It was a note to future me. It said, "Remember that your voice worked. You didn't yell. You didn't perform. You put the facts in the middle and let them stand. Believe yourself, even when the room doesn't." I saved the recording under a name I could find later, Boundary. If you're reading this waiting for the neat bow, it's this. I stopped trying to convince my mother that I was worth her softness. I stopped auditioning. I started acting like the man I am when no one is grading. It turns out you can be a good son and a better boundary at the same time. It turns out love without performance sounds like quiet, and quiet is the most honest uptime I've ever known. Would you have played the audio in the room or kept it for later and let the therapist mediate privately? Where's your line between protecting the truth and protecting peace? Tell me in the comments. If this story made you think about how to set boundaries with family without setting yourself on fire, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a nudge to trust their own recording.